All right, here we go. Here we go. And we are right at a week away from the NFL draft, which gets started, of course, on Thursday, April 24th. And this is a very special edition of Jonesing for Football. Bill Jones here in Dallas, young Cody Winstead in the Jonesing for Football studios alongside his Emmy Award in Philadelphia. And we've got a real treat on this edition because Mike Giardi from the Boston Sports Journal, co-host of the All 32 podcast, is here to join us to talk NFL draft because you can't find anybody across the country who does more research. Well, maybe Dane Brugler, since he does it
Yes.
from year round, about 18 hours a day. But Mike, great to have you here, and I can't wait to get your thoughts on what's going down in Green Bay, Wisconsin, on the not so frozen tundra of Lambeau Field next week.
Yeah, looking forward to this, guys. As always, Bill, great to talk with you. And Cody, we can live or give or take with Cody. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but we'll soldier through.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, I'll just see myself out if you guys just want to talk for the next hour, or I'll just listen and chime in here and there. But yeah, Giardi, great to have you on board, man. And I always love your podcast, listen to it all the time. You do great work, and looking forward to the next hour or so.
Okay, so we got a lot to jump into as far as the draft goes, but for my Cowboys fans here in Dallas, Mike, I gotta ask you about this right off the top because, of course, the Cowboys and the Patriots made the trade a couple of weeks ago. Joe Milton is now a Dallas Cowboy. Of course, the Patriots' sixth-round draft pick out of Tennessee last year. We got to get the New England perspective on this. When I look at it, it leaves me scratching my head. We know what Milton did in his one appearance in the final preseason game, basically against Buffalo backups at the end of the season last year. But what has me scratching my head more than anything, there's a sixth-round guy on sixth-round money the next 3 years that the Patriots are sending away for not that much in return. They're moving up 46 spots on the second half of the third day of the draft. So what's the take in New England on this?
Clearing the runway for Drake May. And look, Drake was going to be the quarterback. There's not a question. Had a really nice rookie year, even if the record doesn't reflect that. But I think Joe is someone who believes he's a starter. And I think there was a little concern that Joe might try to co-opt some people in the locker room. So you had sort of a Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi thing going on, which the Patriots dealt with for a couple of years as well. I think the other part of this too is that this wasn't a Mike Vrabel pick. And if you want to know who's in charge, Elliott Wolf may still have final say in his contract, but this is Mike Vrabel's team, and Mike Vrabel wouldn't have drafted Joe Milton last year. So look, I don't want to have to deal with another young quarterback who thinks he's a star and should play in this league. Go. Good luck in Dallas. Have at it. We're gonna make sure that Drake knows that this is his show and there is no competition. He's the guy.
And of course, Joshua Dobbs, who they picked up in free agency, played for Vrabel in Tennessee, might be not only the smartest player, but the smartest person in the league.
Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, you don't have to worry about that, him picking up the offense. And I will say this for Joe, 6 years in college and never really quite took a foothold anywhere. Michigan, Tennessee. I don't think the Tennessee people were all that broken up when he left, when he graduated. But I'll give him credit for this. I thought he grew as a football player in the summer. And then I think you saw that growth in the week 18. Again, it was a JV performance. The Bills out losered the Patriots in that one, refused to let him get the number one pick. But like his ability to sit there in the pocket instead of taking off is something that's clear that he didn't do in college enough of. His ability to process, to go through his reads, do it quickly, I think was good. He still throws everything at one speed, which is 120 miles an hour. So he's going to have to figure that part out. But I'll give him credit for this because I think it was a good year for him just in terms of his development, and we'll see if he can take the next step in Dallas. But there were some good signs from him at the end of the year for sure.
And one other note on this, the way I look at it is the Cowboys' depth chart at the quarterback position at the end of the year, of course, had Dak and then Cooper Rush, who signed with the Ravens, and Trey Lance. Will Greer was a late season pickup and still on the roster. But I look at Joe Milton as Trey Lance's replacement on the roster, and the Cowboys should still be in the market for a backup quarterback for Dak because we know Dak's injury history here the last few years.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you'll also, you'll have some fun in training camp because he's going to do some backflips every time something good
Yeah.
happens. So you guys, everybody can go nuts over that.
One thing I wanted to ask you about this, Giardi, is the one thing I thought was weird was the timing. Like, if you're the Patriots and Joe Milton actually is a decent quarterback, like, why not wait a few months, let him like blow up in the preseason, and then trade him for maybe a second or third or fourth round pick? Like, it just seems like they kind of gave him away a little too early to me.
Let me throw this in before you answer, Mike, and tell me if this might be a reason. Vrabel and the Patriots started their offseason program, of course, 2 weeks earlier than other teams, being a new coach there, and you want a clean slate to start things before the offseason program begins.
Yep, that's 100% the answer. Bill did not want any sort of lingering questions about it. He's gone. Like I said, clear the runway, clear the decks. It's Drake's team, and it's raised a question here about, like, well, is Drake that sensitive? Like, to sort of the outside noise, because there was, as you can imagine, with a fan base, there is a section of the fan base, whether it's 5-10%, is like, oh, Joe Milton, like, he can do backflips and throws the ball 1,000,000 miles an hour. Like, he's the guy. And so I think it was just like, look, I don't want the noise. I don't want to have to deal with it. We're going forward with this guy. We invested the number 3 pick in you. It's one of the main reasons why Mike Vrabel took the job. Like, I'm not dealing with Joe Milton. It's not, guy spent 6 years in college and ended up as a 6th round draft pick. Like, you guys can overvalue them. I'm not going to.
All right, let's get into this draft, Giardi. And you did a 3-round mock draft on Boston Sports Journal. We looked at it last night. Really good. Would highly recommend everyone goes and takes a look at that. So we're going to use that as kind of the guide as we go through here for the questions. Let's start at the top, where you, like everybody else, has Cam Ward going to the Titans at number 1. I think most people like him. I'm not sure a ton of people love him. What do you think is the ceiling for Cam Ward here in the NFL?
Well, he's definitely not the best player in the draft, but as we well know, quarterbacks always get overdrafted because the league revolves around the quarterback position. I think he's shown enough to make you believe that if he was in last year's draft with Caleb, Jaden, and Drake, that there could have been some conversation about the 3rd pick, whether it be Cam Ward or Drake May, because Drake had some questions about footwork and some of the things that he did in college this past year. But I mean, Cam is super talented. Obviously someone who can make plays off schedule, which is the rage, but is capable of sitting there in the pocket and going through it as well. He's played a lot of football between his various stops in college. And I think he's probably the 5th or 6th best player. So what are we really talking about? So I think for Tennessee, new regime, at least in the front office, Brian Callahan trying to hang on to his job after one really rough year of Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. This makes a lot of sense. Like, hey, clean slate. Let's go forward with the rookie quarterback. That I feel like they've zeroed in on this pretty much since the scouting combine, because I think that's pretty much when the conversation about that pick being for sale stopped.
So the draft starts at number 2 with the Cleveland Browns, and you got a combination of people that are possibilities there. And you've got in your mock draft Travis Hunter, Heisman Trophy winner from Colorado, headed there. And the intrigue will be, and I think this past week now, here's Travis Hunter saying he wants to play both ways for sure. And I don't know if he's trying to dictate things as far as who drafts him, but you've got interesting insight on what you think Cleveland might do if they did take Travis Hunter like you project.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Berry said they see him as a wide receiver first, and then he would play some cornerback. And it's interesting because you mentioned Hunter, not only like, I want to play both ways, but there was sort of I want to play both ways, or I don't want to play at all. Okay, well, I'm going to call you on your bluff. I think this is pretty much how you're going to make your money, and you could have generational riches here. So I'm pretty sure that whatever we do with you, you're going to play, and you're going to like it. So look, since Cleveland's in such a situation where they need a receiver, they got Jerry Jeudy, who finally blew up in the second half of last season, but like, that's pretty much it. And then from a cornerback perspective, they need one there too. So I think it is a good opportunity. I mean, that franchise is a mess with the whole quarterback situation. So why not bring him in? He's going to sell a ton of jerseys. He's a really good football player, and just sort of, not that you can build it around a wide receiver / cornerback, but you can certainly get people to forget Deshaun Watson for the next year if Travis Hunter turns out to be the kind of player we think he is.
Let me follow up on that just for a second. Just to have fun. This is a hypothetical that's not going to happen, but it's fun to talk about. Okay. So it's like a game of what if here. Okay. Whether a trade out or whatever, Cleveland doesn't take Travis Hunter and the Giants, they don't take him either. And so now Travis Hunter is sitting there at 4 to New England. Okay. Here's my trade proposal for you.
All right.
There, Elliot Wolf and Mike Vrabel in New England. Jerry Jones wants Travis Hunter. He wants to trade up from 12 to 4. As you cite, the Rich Hill modified trade value chart, which I found very interesting because it's unlike some of the other ones that you can find out there on the web that aren't as updated, modified like his is. It looks like from that chart, you could move up from 12 to 4 and just give New England a second round draft pick, as opposed to what San Francisco did moving up from 12 to 3 in 2021 to get Trey Lance, and they gave up the house for him. Would New England entertain an offer? What could Jerry Jones give New England to get to number 4?
I think it would have to include not only this year's one, but next year's as well. I know the modified chart. One of the things about that chart is, especially when it comes to quarterbacks, it does change. You know, whatever the points are, throw in a bunch more because that's what it's going to take to move up. And I think they would look at this situation saying, A, we'd like Travis Hunter and probably run to submit the card, right? But if you really want him, it's a first. It's probably the second this year as well, to sort of like make it like it's closer to a quarterback trade than it would be for a normal player.
And Jerry has done that, a trade of that sort before, about 13 years ago, with where he had the 14th pick, moved up with St. Louis to 6, took Mo Claiborne, and so he moved up 8 spots, 14 to 6, which is different than 12 to 4, even though it is 8 spots. And just had to give up a second round pick. Well, the Rams got Michael Brockers with the 14th pick. Cowboys could have stayed there, got Brockers, and then taken a guy named Bobby Wagner in the second round if they wanted to. Instead, they got Mo Claiborne. All right, Cody, go ahead.
All right, let's get to number 3. That's where the Giants pick. I think everyone thinks like whoever doesn't go at number 2, whether it's Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, they're probably the most likely option for the Giants at number 3, or the Giants are a trade candidate there. So, Giardi, you have the Giants trading with the Jets in your mock draft. Do you think that's obviously you think that's a pretty good possibility?
Well, I would just say this. I think there's a fair amount of desperation around the Giants right now. You know, obviously both general manager and head coach are firmly on the hot seat, and you could probably make the argument that they should have moved on, because I think the notion that they should be a playoff team this year to save their job puts them in a weird spot where you're going to do things that you don't want to do. The other part of this trade to me is the Giants historically, and Art Stapleton, who's covered them for a bazillion years, brought this up. They don't do medical question marks. So if there's any concern about the stress reaction in Carter's foot, they're not picking him at 3. So here's a situation where the Jets pass rush wasn't as good as it should have been, could have been, has been in the past couple, 2-3 years. And so Carter is a great fit. You have Will McDonald on one side, Carter on the other, Quinnen Williams plunked down in the middle. And like now you're back to being that sort of Jets pass rush that we saw that made them one of the top 6 or 7 defenses in football 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't think there's any concern about trading with the Jets. Like, there's some questions about Carter's character too. Like, okay, you know what? You deal with that problem. We'll pick up some more assets here that'll allow us to move up and down the board, and we can still get a really good football player and remain, you know, at the 7th pick. You're not dropping back so far where it's like you went from a B+ level player to a B-. You know, there's still an ability to get a really good football player there.
So this brings up a point, and I think you're right. If it goes Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and then the Giants at 3, they're already loaded at that D end, right? They already got Thibodeau, they've already got Burns. They have a really good D line. That's like the only strength on the team. So I think you're right that a trade is possible there. Do you think a quarterback is still in play for the Giants?
I know so they worked out Shador. I don't think he belongs there. Like, and to me, this is one of those situations where if you pick up the extra assets, it gives you an opportunity to come back up in the first round. Because I think the majority of the league sees Shador as a mid first round sort of pick, and maybe even a little later than that. And so, yeah, you have the overdraft factor, but you're really overdrafting him at 3, really overdrafting him at 3. And they spent, not like it's a ton of money in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, but that's $15 million they combine into those 2 quarterbacks. If you follow the money, are you really going to draft Shador and then start him right away? Or are you going to sit him for a while? And then what does that really do for Dayball and Shane and their hopes for maintaining their job? I don't know. I have a hard time getting my head wrapped around that one.
Okay, so you have in your mock draft, you had the Jets trading up with the Giants taking Abdul Carter, which brings us to New England at number 4. And it's Cody, it's now time to wind up Mike Giardi and let him go here because I've seen so many mock drafts that there's an obvious need. Now, New England obviously has done a whole lot in free agency. And including they've Morgan Moses at tackle, and Garrett Bradbury at center, who was let go by the Vikings. But they have a big need on their offensive line, and so a lot of people are projecting Will Campbell, the short-armed left tackle from LSU. Combine his arms measured 32 and 5/8 inches, which of course. That is a no-no in the National Football League to play the left tackle position with those short arms. So is it possible that New England takes Will Campbell at number 4? And what would you think if they did that?
So I think it's highly likely that that's what they end up doing it for. And all I'll say is I wouldn't do it. And I've had people push back. Well, look, he's immediately becomes one of their best 5. I'm not going to argue that. He would. But I think he's probably more likely going to be a guard. And I'm not drafting a guard at 4. If I'm drafting a guard at 4, he better be Quentin Nilsson or Zach Martin. Like that's like, and it better happen like right away. I don't need 2 or 3 years of development. That's got to happen right away. Of course, they would start him at tackle because they're in desperate need of a left tackle. And I just think it's such a risk. There hasn't been a Pro Bowl or All-Pro caliber player with those measurements at left tackle. I think, well, at least dating back to 1999, and it might go further back than that. I just don't know that anyone's gone that far back. It's like, all right, well, 25 years is a good enough sample size. So you're betting on a historical outlier to be your bedrock at left tackle. And to me, it's like, well, what's the ceiling of that player? You're going to tell me, well, what if he's average, Mike? If he's average, they haven't had average tackle play since Nate Solder left in free agency, and Nate wasn't any great shakes either, but at least he was, sort of a consistent plug and play guy. And I'm just thinking to myself, at 4, you don't draft average. At 4, you're looking for Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber talent. And while he was awesome in college, I just have a hard time seeing that translate to left tackle in the NFL.
So what you've got is New England trading out. And I love the trade because it's Chicago coming up from 10 to 4. And in essence, you got a trade of 2 short-armed linemen here. As you got Mason Graham is the guy that Chicago is coming up for, and you think Will Campbell's arms are short? Well, Mason Graham has 32-inch arms. So there you go.
It is such an odd draft, though. Seriously, if you look at it, the tackles in particular, and then the defense, especially the interior defensive linemen, it really is. It's a bunch of T-Rex armed guys. It's just a bizarre scenario this year where that's just for whatever reason, something was in the water and this, when these kids were born or whatever, that this is what it's like. I look at Chicago in this scenario and I say, they did everything they could do in free agency, right? You're trading for interior players, signing Drew Dahlman at center. So they've built up their offensive line to protect their shorter young quarterback and Caleb Williams. They've got good pieces on defense. They've been looking for one more guy to get the passer. So, if Abdul Carter was there, they would certainly, I think, be interested in moving up for that. But Graham is also a penetrating defensive lineman. You put him next to Josh Sweat, and you have the capability of impacting quarterbacks in that division, which I think you need to do. So to me, they put themselves in such a good spot that they're kind of free to do anything they want. And I think just here, hey, this is a really good football player. Let's come up, let's get him. We plug him in. We don't have to worry about that position for a long time.
One other note about the Patriots. How much is this draft about Mike Vrabel setting his mark on this organization, much like what Dan Campbell did in Detroit when with the first pick of the draft, his first year, they took Penei Sewell and they were high fives and they were dancing in that draft room.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that there are players that Mike covets and that this draft is going to be driven by the players that he covets and how, his vision for the players and how he wants to use them. And so, what they did last year when Elliott Wolf had control of the draft board for the first time, well, they already traded Joe Milton. There's a couple guys that were drafted in the first, 4 rounds that might be on thin ice coming into their second year in the league because they're not Mike guys. Like, I think it's clear, like, he's got a vision for what he wants, not only on the field, but off the field. And they're going to pursue that pretty hard here in the draft.
A few things to point out. So you mentioned in your mock that the Patriots traded with the Bears, come get Mason Graham. You already talked about you wouldn't draft Will Campbell, but in your mock, you have the Patriots going back to 10 and drafting Will Campbell at number 10 instead of number 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I did this exercise, it's not about what I would do, because what I would do would not be that. You'll see there's some other picks here. The one right before them at 9, that's not something I would do. But you start putting some of the buzz that you're hearing from around the league, talking to different people, like, I just think it makes a lot of sense. Like, hey, we're going to put him in there at left tackle. We hope it goes well. We hope he's our left tackle of the future. If he's not, we kick him over to left guard, which, oh, by the way, they need one of those too. And, we'll figure out left tackle in the meantime. And we'll say to ourselves, oh, we have Bradbury, we have Mike Onwenu, we have Morgan Moses. Like, we've got 4 of the 5 spots locked down, and we'll figure out the other one.
A couple things on Campbell. Number one, I worked with Brian Baldinger, our guy Baldy at Penn State Pro Day. We talked about a bunch of different prospects, and Baldy kind of made his rounds through the pro days. He likes Will Campbell, thinks he can play tackle in this league. So I just wanted to mention that. And the thing about Campbell that is a little interesting is I went to Pro Football Focus, which Bill Jones knows I love, and I know he loves. Will Campbell, the number 1 tackle on their board yet, out of the top 10 tackles, according to Pro Football Focus, he graded the worst this season, 72.2, which is worse than Membo, Simmons, Banks, Connerly. He was the worst out of the top 10 graded, yet somehow they have him as the number 1 tackle on the board. Is there any concern about that?
Yeah, group think though. This is like, and they got their numbers, and I think Bill and I share thoughts on the PFF grading system. I don't think either one of us is fans of it. But it's like, oh, he was awesome at LSU. Okay, fine. Well, you start digging, and I literally talked to probably 15 people in the league about him, people that have scouted him, college scouting directors, assistant coaches, etc. And you know what kept coming up? He gave up 18 pressures last year, and I think all but 1, according to the people that I talked to, were a result of his issues with length. Now, I know there are some really good edge rushers in the SEC. I will say that there are a lot better edge rushers in the NFL, and you will face them every single week. So, look, great athlete, good feet, really smart. Could it work? Yeah, it could. Like, he's got all the foundation in terms of his mentals and his toughness and all those things, but I can't get past the length, and I can't get past he would be a freaking outlier of all outliers. So if you want to bet your future on that at the 4th pick or the 8th pick or whatever, wherever you're taking him, like, you better be pretty comfortable with your job, because that could go wrong, and he could just be an average guard. And wow, great, awesome. Like, good football teams can find guards in the middle rounds. When the Patriots were awesome, the Patriots generally, there's a Logan Menkins in there, but like generally they found him in the middle rounds. Joe Tooney, 3rd round, Shaq Mason, 4th round. Like that's where you find him. They had undrafted guys. Stephen Neal was a wrestler, for God's sakes, and he turned out to be an awesome guard. So like, I don't know. I know the league is sort of putting money into guard again, but I think the league's putting money into guard again because there aren't enough tackles to pay the money. So you got to pay somebody, and the guard's getting paid.
You say that. So important to mention, Campbell in the SEC, and what everyone says is, oh, obviously they have a ton of great pass rushers and he's going against the best of the best and whatever. Oh yeah, so did Membo at Missouri, SEC, and so did Banks at Texas, and both of them gave up fewer sacks and fewer hits than Will Campbell last year. All right, let's get to Shedeur because we touched on him a little bit. Probably the biggest wild card in the draft, right? We don't know. Is he going to go 9? Is he going to go 3? Is he going to go late rounds? Just give me your thoughts on Shedeur. Like when you break down this film, what do you see? What do you like? What don't you like?
Super accurate, really, really tough, and like incredibly tough. We'll hang in there and get popped under the chin and like get up and do it again. But there's nothing that, from a physical standpoint, that jumps out at you. And I think this is sort of the common thing when you watch him. He's not an awesome athlete. He doesn't have a crazy arm. When you watch him, when he can't set his feet, when he does try to throw, off platform, it generally doesn't go very well. And the other interesting thing about him is I say he's really accurate, but then if you look at some of his metrics on some of the intermediate stuff, it's not awesome. And when you have that arm, I think it's got to be better than that. So I understand the sort of the traits that you think you could coach, but to me, he's not someone that you're going to win because of. You can win with, but you're going to have to surround him with a lot of pieces. Like we look at Ward, and I think there's enough talent there that Cam Ward, and you saw it in college, like Cam Ward won them some games on his own. Shedeur doesn't do that. He doesn't have that. Like Shedeur, if you take away Shedeur's, I think it's the screens, the bubble screens. They ran a ton of screens. His completion percentage drops way down. Like that was like a big part of their offense. So I think there are some concerns there that it feels like, I don't know why, but people are kind of whistling past it a little bit. And I don't think he's ready to play right away either. So that's another part of it where if you're drafting him high, the expectations are he's going to play at some point during his rookie year. And I'm not sure that he's ready to play at some point during his rookie year.
What about the rest of the next tier of, and Shedeur, I think, is probably in that next tier of quarterback prospects. This draft gets knocked for the quarterbacks because they coming off last year where you had 6 go in the first 12. I do think that there are a couple in this that are going to emerge as decent starters in this league, and the trick is trying to figure out which couple that might be. You talk about Jackson Dart, throw out some other names, Quinn Ewers from Texas, Jalen Milroe from Alabama, Tyler Shuck, who's been at Oregon, Texas Tech, and Louisville, Kyle McCord, who's Cody's very familiar with from Ohio State, then to Syracuse, Will Howard won a national
He ran him out of Ohio State, Cody.
That's right.
I love Kyle McCord. I just want to be on record. I love Kyle McCord.
Okay. But, Tyler Shuck is a guy that if you start this time in the draft process, people have the opportunity to hear some noises coming out of NFL draft rooms and from scouts and stuff. And the saying is that his stock is rising. Well, his stock has probably been wherever it was. People are just finding out more from NFL insiders. I'll say this, from what I'm hearing, I would not at all be surprised if the New Orleans Saints land on Tyler Shuck, and I wouldn't be surprised if they shock the world with a Tyler Shuck pick.
You got him at 9?
And they got the 9th pick, obviously, but I would not at all be surprised, and it would shock the world.
He was the best he was the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl. Like, and that was truly my first experience with him, watching him in practice, going like, I maybe watched one Louisville game all year. They're not the ACC is not high on my list of what I'm doing on Saturdays. I'll be watching SEC. I'll be watching Big Ten. I'm generally not watching ACC, but he was the best. I thought he was the best by a long shot. And Leonard was there from Notre Dame, and Milroe had a tough Senior Bowl the whole week. But like Dart was there, and I like Dart. I like Dart in the third round. Now, again, he's not going to get drafted in the third round. He could get drafted at the tail end of the first round, or who knows, maybe New Orleans. That's the pick. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. When I look at the second tier of quarterbacks that you're mentioning, Milroe is the one guy that stands out to me, and I don't think Milroe is advanced as a passer. Like, I mean, I saw him bounce more footballs in the Senior Bowl than should be legally allowed, but he has a superpower. He's an incredible athlete. He is strong as hell. The 4.3 is real. Like, he's got all this stuff in his bag, and so he's the classic. Take him. If you're, I don't know, say Stefanski, I would say Minnesota, but they have the young quarterbacks. They probably don't want to double down on another young quarterback. What if the Rams, who are clearly in need of a quarterback a year or two down the line, whether he thinks he fits or not, but like go to someone who's a quarterback guru and just sit for a year. Man, you're just we're gonna break your mechanics down. We're gonna build you back up. And we know that when push comes to shove and things start to break down, you're capable of doing some crazy stuff. His tape against Georgia in the first half is probably as good a tape of a quarterback play from any of these guys last year, period. But it was a half. And that was the problem with him, right? As a constant roller coaster. So he'd be the one guy I look at and say, if I'm taking a dart throw in the second round, if I want to develop somebody, I know he's got this one elite skill. I don't think Jackson Dart has an elite skill. I don't think Tyler Shuck has an elite skill. I don't think Shador has an elite skill. So to me, that's the one where I could see it, and I could see, he's going to the draft, right? So they got to feel pretty comfortable, if not first round, early second round, that it's going to happen for him, because they don't want the Will Levis, Aaron Rodgers sitting in the green room and like rolling your eyes, and Levis's girlfriend ended up breaking up with him. It's a whole thing. Like we don't want that.
I kind of have the same feelings. And Cody knows this. My sleeper quarterback is Riley Leonard, and it's the same thing. Get him with a good quarterback development guy and see where it goes, because he's got those intangible from a leadership. He's got athleticism too. When I see running wise what he's able to do against the Georgias and Clemsons of the world, I'm going, whoa. And go back and look at his high school basketball tape and the slam dunks and so forth. And I think he will progress as a passer. He is not ready at this point. And that's one of the things I think that might be intriguing to a New Orleans or another team about Tyler Shuck, because he'll turn 26 in September. And you just listen to his interviews, you talk to him, and there is a maturity about him that may, for a team like New Orleans, that has a quarterback issue right now with the Derek Carr situation. And I'm also intrigued by the timing. Shuck was in there on Friday, and the Carr news comes out on Saturday, and I'm sitting there going, are those two related or not? But anyway, and what I'm hearing is New Orleans is all over Shuck. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. As interesting as it was at the top of the draft with the quarterbacks last year, for me, it's going to be interesting on day two to see, end of day one and day two, what happens with these other quarterbacks.
Yeah, I would agree. I do like your thought on Leonard. Like, he's a classic. If he's sitting there in the 5th, 6th round, and it's so much about this is fit too. We've seen it with the young quarterbacks. Like, go to the right place and get built up in the right way, and things can happen for you, or you end up in the wrong place. Like, like who knows what Zach Wilson would have become. I mean, we know he had great physical gifts, could throw the hell out of the ball, but like too much too soon. He wasn't ready for it, and he got broken real quick in New York. And now, we'll see if he can find a second life as a backup quarterback, and maybe someone takes a flyer on him, a year from now as a potential bridge guy. But like, if you don't end up in the right place, they get chewed up and spit out pretty quick.
And there's two classic examples from the last decade, and one would be Dak in Dallas, 135th pick late in the 4th round, and then Russell Wilson in Seattle is the
Absolutely.
other one.
Yeah. Giardi, you study all these prospects like crazy. You mentioned you were at the Senior Bowl, so you've interacted with a bunch of them. We can broaden out here, not just quarterback, but is there a prospect or two that you like more than most people? You're looking at mocks and you're like, that's a little low. I would draft that guy higher. Are there a couple guys you like there?
Well, I would say he was too low, but now maybe there's some buzz. We were just talking before we came on the air, Trevion Henderson. I think most people probably looked at him as a 2nd round guy, and now there's some 1st round stuff. Like, he is and I know this is an incredibly deep running back class, so you can easily convince yourself, like, now we'll just get the next guy. We're not going to pick one too high. But like for the way the NFL is played now, he's explosive. He has the ability to take it to the house, whether it's on a swing pass, a screen, whatever zone, whatever read. Like he's capable of doing that. But the other part that I love about him, and so few of these guys actually are capable of, is he understands pass protection, blitz pickup, and he's really good at it. He's like Quinshawn Judkins is a bigger back than he is, right? Judkins can't pass protect at all. Henderson, meanwhile, a smaller dude, is like sticking his nose in there and he's laying people out. Like that ability, like already he can come in. Hey, you're not our number one back, but you're already carving yourself out of role as the third down back. And then you sure you can handle that. Then it's more reps and earlier downs. And then the next thing you know, he's someone who is impacting you week to week and doing big things. I just think everybody's looking for playmakers. I think he's a playmaker. He just happens to play running back, but I think we've seen a little bit of a pushback against the anti-running back campaign. So he's a guy that I absolutely love him. I have him picked at the Patriots in this mock draft, and people are like, "Oh, you can't draft the Patriots can't draft the running back." I'm like, well, Ramondre hasn't been very good. A, B, Vrabel and the Ohio State connection, and C, Josh McDaniels knows what to do with pass catching running backs, and he is that. So he's one. I'll give you another one. Iowa State, and again, he's gotten some good buzz here, I think, in the last month, is Jalen Noel, their slot receiver. Now, Jaden Higgins might get drafted higher than him. Teams probably look at him more as an X, and Noel's more of a slot guy. But when Iowa State needed a play, they didn't go to Higgins. They went to Noel. Incredibly explosive, really quick. He's one of those guys that even though his size, he's able to stretch the field from the slot. He can line up in other spots, so it's not like he's just totally married to the slot. The thing about him at the Senior Bowl, and then when you go back and you look at the tape, you see it in spots, but you don't see it consistently because the quarterback threw everything 110 miles an hour there too. So I think he eliminated some yak stuff because he didn't have any touch. So it's like, put a little behind him and you're throwing at 100 miles an hour. You're just trying to catch the ball, right? You're not thinking about the next move. At the Senior Bowl, his ability to pluck it with his hands and turn upfield in one motion, nobody did that at the Senior Bowl like he did. So like you can see there hasn't been a ton of yak in his career, but that there with the right quarterback and the right system, there absolutely could be. He's capable because of how quickly he transitions from catch to run.
I noticed in your mock draft, I like what you did with the Patriots in the second round. You went Donovan Jackson, Ohio State guard, and then Travion Henderson, the running back, both Buckeyes, both Vrabel effects as a Buckeye.
I did it for you, Cody. The hell
I
with
like
Vrabel.
your
It's all
style.
about you.
I like your style. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, and then for me, I was up till 2 a.m. last night doing a Cowboys 7-round mock draft, and I had Travion Henderson going to the Cowboys at 44 in the second round. And now I'm sitting there going, I'm going to have to change my pick because to your point on Henderson and this pass pro especially, what sets him apart from these other backs, he is ready to go now. And the buzz that there might be out there about him getting into the first round, a really good football team who's in need of a running back might take him because he's ready to go right now because of the pass pro as much as anything. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to go to my next running back on my board. Judkins is one that I like, but also like Caleb Johnson from Iowa to the Cowboys at 44. So we'll see. In general, as you put together your 3-round mock draft for the Boston Sports Journal, what's a takeaway on after doing that as far as maybe a strength of this draft or wherever you like to go with it?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously, and this was sort of been the buzz since the Senior Bowl. The defensive line class is awesome, and I don't care if you have a good defensive line. It makes sense to get into this draft and take one, somewhere in the first 3 or 4 rounds. I just think there are so many good football players, the highly graded football players. Like that was the thing at the Senior Bowl too. You're just watching, you're like, how many guys, and you start going through, you're like 12, 13, 14 of these guys are going to get drafted. And how many are going to draft in the first round? 5 or 6 of them. There's just a whole lot of really good football players. And some guys that weren't even there, like Michael Williams, who, I'll always go back to Michael as a true freshman, 18 years old. kicking people's ass in the SEC and in the playoffs for that Georgia team. And, he dealt with an ankle injury this year that he played through, and maybe didn't have the stats everybody wants, but you start to look at the measurables, the long arms, like you start to envision a place where I could see him going in the top 10. Maybe he doesn't have the production that says that, but he's one of those guys that
He can't go in the top 10 because I got him going to the Cowboys at 12.
All right, well,
I
that's
love
good.
him.
12, 10, 12. That's a good little place for him. But he's a terrific football player,
Yes.
and has his best football still ahead of him. So that definitely jumps out to me. I also think it's not we talk about the short arm tackles all over the draft. It's not the top end of the draft is not awesome for tackles, but there are 7 or 8 tackles that are probably going to go in the top 50, 60 picks. And I think they're good players. It's just, fit sort of thing where, where are they going to go and if they're in the right place, but there are some good players. So you don't have the dominating one, you don't have the Joe Alt this year or the Tristan Wirfs from a year prior or whatever, but you have these guys that I think they're starting caliber tackles in the league. And like I said, I don't think there's less than there used to be. So that's pretty important, entering the league, to have some guys that you think like, I can plug and play this guy pretty soon.
By the way, I love how you just made Bill Jones switch his 2nd-round pick from Travion Henderson, and you made him switch his 1st-round pick from Michael Williams.
I had Henderson at 44, Bill. You're all right. You can leave him at 40, 41. You have him 44. It's, give it could be there.
Yeah, but
Bill was just up till 2 a.m. last night. Huge waste of time. Now he's going to be up till 3 a.m. tonight. Nice work.
But I've been spending the last week trying to convince Cody that the Cowboys need an edge rusher. I don't care that they've got Sam Williams coming back from his ACL. They signed Dante Fowler. Those are speed rushers. They need to replace DeMarcus Lawrence. And people don't talk enough about the effect on that team. In the 4th game of the year last year, Micah goes down, and of course Dak went down a couple of weeks later. But the loss of DeMarcus Lawrence was huge on that team. And as much as anything, and this was where I love Michael Williams, is his ability to defend the run. I think he is the perfect replacement for D-Law on this Dallas defense.
He's already he might have been ready as a freshman to be an NFL run defender. Like, that's how good he was. And even with the ankle last year, he was still awesome against the run. So he's, again, tell me what he can do. Like, I know right away, Michael Williams can come in and be an NFL level edge setting run defender. And then if the pass rush develops, which you think it will to a certain degree, then maybe you have an elite run defender who also is capable of 8-9 sacks a year. I'd sign up for that.
Well, and I think one of the reasons he's not getting as much buzz is because scouts and us so-called draft experts, we don't have measurables to put on him because he didn't test. And he ran a 40 at his pro day, but there's no cone drill for him. And so with a cone drill, for an edge rusher, you got to see that under 7 cone drill to say, okay, yeah, he's a 1st rounder. And so when you don't have that, and then the production, it reminds me of Daniil Hunter coming out of LSU, and he was one of my big guys in 2015 because he had no production, but he was built like Godzilla, and a lot like Michael Williams. And he tested very well, but he had like 1.5 sacks in college. But when you look at the tape, you could tell he was coached to defend the run first, especially back then, 10 years ago in the SEC. You had to defend the run in the SEC. It's changed a little bit over the course of the last decade, but when he did pin his ears back and go after the quarterback, it was there. The bend was there, everything was there, and Daniil Hunter's got 99.5 sacks now in the NFL.
I'm glad you brought him up because we had a press conference with Mike Vrabel Tuesday, and he mentioned Hunter. Because we were talking, say you got asked the question, I think, about analytics, and he's like, how do you weigh the use of analytics? He's like, well, it helps, it either takes you back to the tape to confirm or disprove something that you thought from watching the tape. And then he did mention Hunter, and he's like Hunter didn't have any production in college. I mean, look at him now. He's got a $35 million full guarantee, whatever that was, this past year. And the production that he's had in the league. And 2 names jumped to mind when he said it: Michael Williams and Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, who, of course, famously has 4.5 sacks in 3 years, even though he's built like a Greek god. And he's in the backfield a ton. He hasn't finished plays, but it's like he's one of those guys where you got to look at all the pieces and say, man, with just a little bit better coaching, like, is he the next 12 to 14 sack guy in the league? And is he going to be that for the next 6 to 8 years? Like, it's, you can see it. It's possible, but he doesn't have the college tape to back it up and say like, oh, he's 12 sacks in the league. No, he didn't do that, but can he do it at the next level? I think a lot of teams think that.
Well, and with Daniil Hunter, I mean, he lasted all the way to the end of the third round. And I was so, and Cody can tell you, I was so in love with Daniil Hunter in that draft on draft. And I couldn't figure out, why is he being projected as this third round pick? On draft day, the first day of the draft, I called his high school coach down in Houston and said, tell me about Daniil Hunter. And he couldn't say enough good things about him. He said, they'll name the weight room after him. Well, that was obvious. Just look at a picture of
Right.
him. And I said, so what's his potential? And this is an old coach who he was like right out of Friday Night Lights, a Texas high school football coach. Yeah. He says, I said, so what's his potential? Hall of Fame. And so that's why I had Daniil Hunter to the Cowboys in the first round. I don't care what anyone else said. So,
Well, you would have been right.
the one I got right.
Hey, I'll give you another one. Nick Scorton, right? Who was at A&M this year. Nick Scorton in 2023 at Purdue was awesome. Like, first round, awesome. And he took the NIL money, which I'm not blaming him. And he went to Texas A&M and he went on that defensive line and figured like, oh, I'm going to eat. And now I'm going to be a top 10 pick. Well, they asked him to gain like 20 pounds. He's playing on the inside more than he is on the outside. The incredible spin move that he has in his bag pretty much went away with the 20 pounds that he gained in about 3 months. And he doesn't have the same kind of year. And he's now probably a second or third round pick. So he cost himself a lot of money on the back end of it. But like, he's losing the weight again. He's down to like 255. Like, someone's going to get the Purdue player in the second or third round, and they're going to have a guy who could be a double-digit sack guy, and we're going to go, whoa, how did that happen? Well, it's a new world now with the NIL and guys transferring. But if someone sees and goes back to the real tape, which to me was the Purdue tape, like, you found yourself a hell of a football player.
All right, Giardi, this podcast was built on NFL draft day 2 and day 3 gems. That's why Bill and I started this podcast, because we were texting about wide receivers from South Dakota State and offensive guards from Cal late night. I still
don't forget Rex Burkhead and Tony Jefferson.
Yep, those two. Bill's 3 a.m. text, no joke, that he loves Daniil Hunter. And I'm like, who is this guy texting about this college kid at 3 a.m.? Anyway, looking for you, any day 2 or specifically day 3 gems that you like in this draft?
I'm trying to think. Day 2, I mean, I definitely put Scorton in there.
Yep.
I'm not going to say his name right because I've heard the pronunciation 8 different ways. Siobhan Ravel, the corner from East Carolina, who was going to be a top 15 pick, right?
Yeah, Cowboys have had him in for a visit.
Tore the ACL. I mean, I've seen him as low as the third round now. Like, if his medicals check out, like, he's a guy who gets in your face and plays man and plays it well. I like Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame. Safeties, 2 years ago, everybody's cutting their safeties, right? There was all these safeties on the market. Now, all of a sudden, a couple of guys getting paid again, and people are starting to think that's a position maybe worthy of it. He's a really, really good football player. There's a wide range for Kyle Williams, the receiver out of Washington State. I mean, I've heard as high as 38 to the Patriots. I've heard 4th round, because he's inconsistent hands, and maybe teams don't. I don't know. You just want you want to be sure about what you're getting there, but he's an explosive football player. No, I'm trying to think of any other, like we talked about Leonard.
I got one that you have, and this is up my alley. There's a reason I'm in a crimson colored room, because I'm an Oklahoma grad. Billy Bowman, the safety from Oklahoma, as you have him going to the Rams at 101. Pop in this kid's tape. He's 5'9" and change and sub 195 pounds, but plays like he's 6'2", 210. He's also a playmaker. I saw him play in high school. He went to Denton Ryan High School here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. and he was a wide receiver, and he was actually recruited by Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma to play wide receiver, and somehow he got on the defensive side of the ball instead. Maybe it was when Brent Venables took over.
Yeah. So
But
this guy's kind of mean. Like he wants to take people's heads off. There's a couple guys like that, like Makuba, the safety from Texas, right? Where again the range has been anywhere from third to fourth round. He's the same thing where he's like sort of undersized, but he thinks he's 220 and he plays that way. Like he really wants to take your head off. And so I have an appreciation for guys like that. I guess I'm showing my age a little bit.
And another guy I'm intrigued by is the TCU wide receiver who has been, well, there's a couple of them, Besh as well as Savion Williams. Savion Williams is the one I was going to bring up, a 6'4" guy he's like a Cordero Patterson type, but he has a physical run style, and he would be in that. I think as a wide receiver, there's something to work with there. Needs to be with a good receiver coach, and there's some potential there that he could really turn into something.
Yeah, he strikes me as someone who doesn't fully know how to play football yet.
Right.
And so if you can develop that, you can't, I mean, the physical gifts are absurd. So like if we can teach this guy a little bit how to play football, and then you combine it with the 6'4", 200 and whatever 20 pounds and the leaping ability and the speed, it's like, yeah, you could have a massive hit on your hands.
Okay, as we wrap this thing up, give us a bold statement about the 2025 NFL draft, whether it's a bold prediction, whatever. I've already, earlier, I got shucked to the Saints at number 9. That's my bold prediction.
Good luck being more bold than that.
Yeah, I can't. How about just as a general, I think there'll be more running backs taken in the first 3 rounds than in any year since, like, I think it was like 96. There was like 10 or 11. I think you're going to have a load of running backs in the first 3 rounds.
We were just looking at the 1990 draft, Emmitt Smith's draft, where he went 17th. Blair Thomas went number 2 to the Jets that year.
I love Blair Thomas. That didn't work out.
Yeah, there was a run on running backs right after Emmitt went, where there's like the next 4 of the next 5 picks were all running backs. By the way, speaking of that, that's one of the reasons, looking back, that I got into studying draft prospects as much as I did. Late in Blair Thomas' career, he came to the Cowboys as a late season pickup. The Cowboys had an injury to the backup to Emmitt. And so here's Blair Thomas and Emmitt Smith from the same draft, basically side by side in the locker room. And there wasn't, just in terms of the way the two carried themselves, the confidence level. Emmitt walks in the day he was drafted by the Cowboys. He walks into Valley Ranch wearing this bright polka dot short jumpsuit type thing. I'm like, if anyone who has the confidence to wear that into the NFL on his first day is going to do something in the NFL. Blair Thomas was like the exact opposite. He was just very quiet, and I'm like, how does a team interview? Forget the tape, but you know what both did in their college careers. Forget all that, but how do you pick this guy over that guy just when you interview him?
It's like our friendship with Cody. Like, you see some of the photos that his lovely girlfriend posts on Instagram, and he's, no socks. His pants they're like shorts kind of, but they're pants. They're like like the capris, like the women wear capris.
Yeah.
Cody wears capris. The top button's buttoned up at all times. Like, I wouldn't do it. I don't know that I had the confidence to do it, but he doesn't care. He just rolls out there. He's like, this is me. And this is why he is what he is,
That's right. That's how he got started.
Me and Emmitt Smith, two great people, great at our jobs, no doubt about that.
100%.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. Boston Sports Journal, All 32 podcast. I know, Mike, you and Cody go way back, NFL Network days, and it's been great having you on here for I think the second straight year as a pre-draft, but we need to get you on again leading into the season and stuff. It's a great insight.
Is the NFL Network still on the air? Is they going,
right.
Are they going dark yet? Lots a lot of good talent.
Yes, they have. All right. We appreciate it, Mike,
Thanks.
and enjoy his work. Enjoy the draft, and we'll have a couple of more before the draft kicks off next week. Young Cody's got something up his sleeve. But in the meantime, we thank you for joining us here for Jonesing for
For football. Thanks, Bill. Love you, babe.